Hello guys, my name is Sergey, I'm a freediving instructor trainer, and today with you guys we will try to answer the popular question among the beginner freedivers: how often do I need to train my breath hold? And the reason why I'm making this video, because again a few days ago I saw the question in the internet from the beginner freedivers: how often do I need to train oxygen or CO2 tables? And the funny part that someone actually was trying to answer this question without asking any more questions. Someone was giving advices like, okay, you need to train 2 times per week or 3 times per week or 4 times per week. And the reality, there is no like a direct one answer. If someone asking how many times do I need to train, there is no like one answer. So the answer will depend on how much intensity on this training, so how intense you're training. If you have a really intense training, then you have to have longer time for recovery. If your training is really light, if it's more like a technical training, then you can have a shorter recovery. If you are thinking to do a, let's say, a training plan, then quite often you can see that in the training plans, in the beginning there is like a volume training when you do a lot of low intensity training sessions, but like really often. And at the end of the training plan, people do low volume but high intensity. But let's come back to freediving. How often do you need to train your breath hold? Let's say if you are training no contractions table, let's say you're planning to do a static training and you do a no contractions table. It means you do a breath hold and hold until your first contractions. I made a video about this type of training a while ago, so the link is going to be in the description and somewhere here. So then this type of training you can do almost every single day, because there is no intensity in this training. So the training mainly focused on the relaxation, on your ability to do relaxation breathing, on your ability to take the correct position for your breath hold, and your ability to be relaxed in this position. So this type of training you can do almost daily. Why almost daily? If you do the same training over and over, then it's really easy to get tired of this training. So this is why, let's say when I'm doing this training with my students, quite often we do 3 days in a row and then 1 day off. So if your training is really easy, if it is dynamic training, maybe it is like a technical training, how to do turns, how to kick, etc, etc. If it's static, maybe it's no contractions tables, then I like to do 3 days in a row, 1 day off, 3 days in a row, 1 day off. If your training becoming a little bit more intense, let's say you start playing with a CO2 table, again maybe with a classical CO2 table, when you're taking 50% from your maximum and do it repetitively, let's say 7 times. Again, a lot of people critique this type of training because this training is pretty easy. If you do this type of training, it's still going to be a little bit more challenge compared to no contractions tables. So this is why maybe you need to do it less often. So maybe you're going to do, if you're training classical CO2 tables, maybe you're going to do 2 days training, 1 day off. 2 days training, 1 day off. And then if you're planning to do like much more intense training, maybe it is like a CO2 table with 1 breath in between. I'm also make this video before about this. Or you do like O2 table, when you try to hold your breath almost until your maximum. Then maybe you're gonna do it 1 day training, 1 day off, 1 day training, 1 day off. And then let's say if you're planning to do, if your shape already good enough, if you was training for a few weeks or maybe for a few months and you're planning to do now your maximum, then maybe you can need even more rest. So maybe you can train 1 day and then have a 2 days off. You can train 1 day and have a 2 days off. So guys, to summarize, your frequency, the frequency of your training really depends on the intensity. If intensity is low, then it can be, you can train frequently. If your intensity is high, then you need to have a lot of rest. You don't want to have a lot of training sessions. How you can say is your intensity is high or low? In freediving we have a contractions, so you can based on that. Again, it's going to be not really accurate. the better it's more like evaluate yourself, how you evaluate this session. But let's say in the beginning you can base it on the amount of contractions. So if you have no contractions at all, then this session was pretty easy, and then it means that you can do this type of training really often, whether it is static or dynamic. If you have a few contractions, so maybe you do like 7 breath holds, like a classical CO2 table, and on the last one you have a few contractions. Maybe the time of the contractions was 10-15 seconds. Then let's say this is a middle intensity and you need to do less often, maybe 2 days in a row and then 1 day off. And then if your contractions time, in my opinion, more than 30 seconds, then you want to do 1 training, 1 day off, 1 training, 1 day off. And then when you're planning to do your maximum, the maximum have to be even less often. Maybe your maximum attempt is going to be once per couple of weeks, or maybe once per month, or maybe even once per few months. It depends on the level of your current level. So guys, this was my thought about the frequency of the freediving training, frequency of the breath hold training. Once again, frequency depends on the intensity. I hope this video was useful for you. I hope I answered some of your questions. If I did, then don't forget to click the like button, and I will see you next time.